Hey everybody, it's Mandy Ray here to tell you a bit about the full moon in Pisces, which is tonight. For me in Central Time US, it is nearly 7 p.m. when it's full. It's 6:54 p.m. and it will be rising for me when it's exactly full, which I think is really cool. So this full moon is in Pisces, which is associated with the dream world. It's associated with mystical energy, intuition, creativity, compassion. It's really all-encompassing. I really link Pisces to the idea of spiritual messages, which some people might call the Holy Spirit. Let's say if you have Christian leanings, that's one of the ways to look at it. It's those still small voices that you hear. And we all have those. We all have those moments, right? Where we're about to cross the street and we go, I don't know if I want to. And then, a truck comes flying around the corner. You're like, how did I even know? That is what Pisces is. It's that intuition that tells you things and you feel them, you think them, and they seem to come from somewhere else. Is it from your head? Is it from the magnetic field, the Akashic records? Let's throw out all these things that we can say about where messages might come from. God, you name it, right? And that's why I use this imagery. That's why I refer to things like the archetype of the Holy Spirit and um, the muses. And so with the full moon in Pisces, that energy is heightened. The moon is our emotional nature. And so in this sign, it has an affinity with it. Let's just put it that way. The moon really enjoys being in watery places. Pisces is mutable water, which is a lot like fog or mist. And so, yes, mystical energy. Now, Pisces is traditionally ruled by Jupiter. The modern ruler is Neptune. And you'll hear me say modern and traditional a lot because there's two different schools of thought. I like to honor both of them. That's what I do. It jives with me. And some people are just strictly traditional and some people are strictly modern. I like to look at all of it. So when we look at the modern ruler, Neptune, it's actually in Pisces, and this full moon has come in contact with Neptune just before the full moon, just before it's full. So Neptune is a lot different in terms of its significations. It's mystical, intuitive. It's a lot like Pisces itself. Jupiter, on the other hand, is a different thing. Jupiter rules our belief systems, our reality, what we find to be true for ourselves. It's about learning. It's the planet of expansion and abundance and higher learning. And so I am looking at Jupiter for this full moon personally. I think it's adding a lot of nuance to its meaning because Jupiter is an Aquarius. And Aquarius is where we've been doing a lot of work. Saturn's there, which is, the work we're doing. And Jupiter is there, which is how we, especially in Aquarius, it's like our ideals for the future. And interestingly, Jupiter is trine to Mercury for this full moon. Mercury is in Libra. Mercury is slowing down. At this full moon, it's very close to its retrograde. We're only about 7 days away from it turning retrograde, and only just a couple of degrees. At this full moon, Mercury is at 23 degrees of Libra. It will turn retrograde at 25 degrees of Libra. So you can see it's pretty close. And whenever Mercury's moving slowly, well, that's exactly how Mercury acts. And the trickster energy, I find, gets really high at Mercury stations. And with Jupiter in a trine, meaning let's just say they're flowing together, they've got open lines of communication. It is extra Mercury in Libra. Now, Mercury in Libra has a lot of connotations of maybe indecisiveness, but also reconciling. That's a word I would use for Mercury in Libra. And with Jupiter there, what we're doing is we're communicating our truth and maybe becoming aware of a truth that we weren't exactly aware of before this. And I think the significance is we should not lose the significance of that during this full moon, specifically because it will turn retrograde. So anything that we become aware of now, it's like, oh, we have to turn around and rethink. And it makes sense. It's like, oh, it's come up to this trine. Oh, this is my truth. I had no idea. Or I was just only aware of a little bit of it, but now it's totally clear. And the full moon's illuminating that. And we're getting messages from the ether. And now it's apparent. And so what do we do? Well, we've got all week to think about it because Mercury turns retrograde. And so this week, I expect a lot of epiphanies for sure. So this full moon kicks off the epiphanies, I think. So is it about where Pisces is for you? Yes, absolutely. Pisces is where we are continually receiving intuitive messages in our life. So you should find where it is in your chart. I'll go by rising sign soon and talk to you about what it means for you. But also this is definitely about the Aquarius area of your chart because that is where the Jupiter Saturn conjunction was. That's where both Jupiter and Saturn are retrograde. Jupiter is the ruler of this full moon trining Mercury. So it's got a lot, it's juicy. The other thing about this full moon that I cannot forget to point out is that it is sextile to Pluto. Pluto is power. Pluto is transformation. And we've been doing a lot of work about who has authority over us. It's in Capricorn right now. And with the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, we had a lot of work there about who has power over us, what are the rules, what are the structures, the foundations in our lives went through a major change. Well, a pandemic, right? We all know that. That continued a little bit, but then boom, the solstice 2020, we had Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius and we were moving on. So now it's okay. Now that we've broken down these walls, these old structures that are not suiting us, that's Capricorn, we have to build the future Aquarius. Okay, so this full moon in Pisces is in a supportive aspect with Pluto. So they are like, hey, let's help each other out. So the messages we could get could come from really deep down, really some awakening to things that we weren't aware of. Maybe what power means to us, again, who has authority over us, what our rules for engagement are with people, especially because as soon as this happens, this full moon hits and then Mercury moves and squares Pluto and will also square the moon at the same time in the coming week. So this is also very significant. Where are we allowing people or things to have authority over us? And something that came to me earlier when I was doing my meditation earlier is addiction issues. What are we addicted to? Pisces really does rule escapism and addiction. And I don't just mean drugs. What do we allow to have power over us in our life? I hope that that's illuminated for you. It's definitely being illuminated for me right now. What am I allowing to have power over my body, to have power over my mind, to have power over my spirit? Am I in control? Am I able to even hear the synchronicities, hear the messages, or am I clouded by, social media, the news, food, and I don't mean to say, food as a thing to be feared, but I mean, when we lean into it in unhealthy ways is what I mean. So, alcohol, drugs, and Netflix, right? You can be addicted to anything. You can allow anything to distract you. And there's major distraction signatures as well here. So it really is, I think, helpful to have Jupiter trine Mercury where we can be like, okay, focus. But this Neptune sextile Pluto hopefully will illuminate for us what we're allowing to have authority over us that no longer really should have authority over us, or that we want to. So it is asking us for a bit of transformation, a bit of that going deep and figuring out, what is this that I'm allowing to rule me? Okay, so I'm going to go through the rising signs quickly, and then I'm going to go through the next week because I do want to hit some important points coming up this week. So let's just go ahead and look at Aries rising, because this is in your 12th house. This is highly spiritual for you. This full moon is anyway for everybody, but for Aries risings, you have Pisces in the 12th. So I would expect dreams to really be off the hook for everybody. By the way, everybody should have wild dreams during this time. I know I have. I'm just like, whoa, getting so many messages from the dream world. But for Aries risings, for sure. Like, I mean, this is really where you get downloads and you upgrade. So let's also think about where Aquarius is for you, Aries rising. This is in the area of networking and future goals and large communities, so your tribe. So you could become aware of a truth there, or maybe thinking about what you want to be true, because it is future. What do you want for yourself in the future? Do you want a friend group that is just, you can network with all these people and you have this big network? Do you want, what is your goals? Mercury's in your 7th house of relationships. So this has a lot to do with how you relate to people as well. And you may have to rethink something like, oh, maybe I've been too open. Oh, maybe I've been too closed off. Those are the questions you'll be asking yourself. It's worth it to note that Mars is in Libra. You get a lot of relationship action here in the next bit. So pay attention to that area for sure. And it's definitely going to have a lot to do with your 11th house networking friend groups. So I would expect to get some messages about that soon. All right, Taurus Rising. Taurus Rising. This is going to be in your, hold on, I'm just like clicking through my chart so I can make sure and have it right. It helps me to visualize. Never apologize for the things that help you. A little pause. I'm a musician, and this is a lot like tuning my guitar. Like, you have to pause for that to make it good. So, okay, here we go. So Taurus rising. This is this full moon is in your 11th house. So it's similar to the Aries rising, but that's where the full moon is. So that's where you're going to be receiving some messages, perhaps. Now, Jupiter is in your 10th house of career, public reputation, mastery. That's what you're having your idealism about. What is true for you in career? What is true for you in public reputation? What is true for you in the way you present yourself to the world? And I would say this is about meaning overall for you. What brings you meaning in your life? Mercury is in your 6th house, which is your routine. And so that's where you're going to have to do some tweaking soon with the Mercury retrograde. Health, routine, what you do every day for work with your hands. That's very true for you. So I would definitely pay attention to your routine. And I think that you'll make some headway over the next month. Mercury retrograde is going to actually aid you in any changes you need to make there. And that will ultimately reverberate in your career stuff. Okay. Gemini rising. This Pisces full moon is in your 10th house. That is career. I've said it already, public reputation. That's just like the traditional signification of the 10th house. But I find it is what brings meaning to you, like your legacy, how you want to be known when all it's said and done. That's where you're having some realizations, some messages in your life. And then Jupiter is in your 9th house. So this really is a little bit abstract for you. It's like, what is true for me? Am I learning? Am I growing? What is my next adventure? I think that's going to be illuminated as well. Now, the Mercury retrograde, the Mercury station trine Jupiter is in your fifth house of creativity, romance, love, children, inner child. So this has a lot to do with what is fun for you. Like, do you let yourself have fun? Do you let yourself be in that playfulness, that playful spirit? I think that's what the Mercury retrograde is bringing out for you, and I think that's going to have a lot to do with this full moon, even though it's not directly connected. Expect to receive some messages about what's fun, about your inner child needs. Ultimately, you're going to be experiencing that as a theme for this full moon. Cancer rising. Ooh, this full moon is in your ninth house of adventure. I call the ninth house your choose your own adventure place. I love it because it really is about the whole wide world, your belief system, what is true for you, what you believe to be true for you. So you could be learning new things and like having some absolute realizations with this. Now, Jupiter's in your eighth house. The realizations that are going to come are going to have a lot to do with how you share yourself, what your boundaries are, because Jupiter and Saturn in your eighth house have shared resources. So, how you share yourself, how you share your money, how you get money from others, how you get resources from others. It goes both ways. Mercury and also Mercury retrograde. Mercury is not retrograde yet, but it will go retrograde the 27th. And this really is like the initial, I think, spark of what it's going to be about this full moon. And it's for Cancer risings, it's in your fourth house. That is home, family, roots, ancestry. So it's likely you'll be doing some sort of changing something. Maybe you're just coming to the realization, oh, this is what I want to do in my house. I need to move my office. I'm a Cancer rising. This is absolutely true for me. It's ridiculous how literal it is. Sometimes I've just changed my office, moved it from upstairs. We got to get a new couch, all kinds of things. So that's what that is. Now, also, how you are emotionally secure is another thing about Mercury being in Libra here. You're going to be thinking a lot about your emotional security, I think. So that's why we end up making changes to our house. It's like we're feeling out of sorts, right? We just need to make a change. So that's what I think you're going to be dealing with for this full moon. Okay, Leo rising. Yes, yes, yes. This full moon is in your eighth house of shared resources. So, how you share yourself with people. Inheritance is another word I would use for the eighth house. Also, uh, boundaries like power plays. So, I would definitely look to that for a theme that you may be experiencing. Now, let's also talk about how Jupiter and Saturn are in your seventh house. So this could be about relationships for sure for you. The eighth house is about contracts. The seventh house is about relationships. You put the two together and that could be marriage stuff, right? Now, Mercury in Libra is in your third house, the way you think, the way you communicate. So I think you're going to need to be speaking your truth to people, especially in relationships. And because this full moon is sextile Pluto, maybe saying this is what I will or will not put up with anymore. But definitely that's going to be illuminated for you. So I would pay attention to what people in your life are saying, and what you're saying back, how you're opening up to those as well. All right. For Virgo rising, this full moon is in your seventh house of relationships. So this is how you relate to all kinds of things, not just people, but it's definitely people as well. So it could be friendships, it could be romantic partners. But that's where you're getting messages or something is being illuminated for you. Now, Jupiter is in your sixth house of work, daily routine, health. And so you may be finding a new ideal or something new you want to do there, some sort of awareness of what you do every day, your routine, and your health. Mercury, about to get retrograde, is in your second house of finances, self-worth, and values. So you're probably going to be rethinking something there. Maybe you haven't valued yourself completely, and maybe that's what's going on in your relationships, and that doesn't necessarily have to mean your relationships are bad. It just means that maybe if you were to value yourself more, maybe those relationships would go smoother. And that also has implications for the sixth house, maybe getting into a routine that reflects the value you have for yourself. Okay, Libra rising. This full moon is in your sixth house of health and routine and daily life. And so this could be highly spiritual for you. Like I'm thinking doing rituals for sure. The sixth house is where you do rituals. And so this would be a great time to really get into that. Now, Jupiter and Saturn are your fifth house. Creativity, inner child, joy. That's what the fifth house is. So you're doing a lot of work there because Saturn is there. But Jupiter's like, can you imagine what if we had a life in which we could do this all the time? Now, Mercury is in your first house of identity and self. So I think that showing people who you are, really saying, this is me, is going to be a big deal. This could have a lot to do with how you show up in the world and maybe thinking, you know what? I want to do this differently. I want to maybe instead of wearing Crocs every day, maybe I want to change to flip-flops. I know that's ridiculous, but what I'm saying is it has a lot to do with you, how you show up. That's where Mercury is, and that's where it's about to go retrograde. So your identity could be going through a little bit of a tweaking, right? And it could have something to do with showing off that inner child, that play, that fun, and then making that a part of your daily life, being creative every day. That's important. Okay. Scorpio risings. This full moon for you is in your fifth house of inner child, joy, fun. Romance is another thing as well. So romance could be a part of this for you, really showing you something through that. Maybe your children speak up and say something you didn't expect them to, and it makes you become aware of something. Now, Jupiter and Saturn are in your fourth house. That's home and family. So you're doing a lot of work there, but also there's a lot of hope and a lot of idealism in the area of home and family for you. You could be adding to your family. You could be moving. There's all sorts of possibilities depending on your chart. Mercury retrograde will be in your 12th house. The 12th house is the dream world. It is spirituality. It is very abstract. And so this is how I say you have downloads and upgrades. That's where this happens. And that's what the Mercury retrograde is for you. So there could be lots of synchronicities happening for you. And I would definitely pay attention to those things. This would be a really good time for you to begin a meditation practice or something of that nature. Write down what you're dreaming about. In fact, writing in general is going to be a really good activity for you, Scorpio risings. Journaling, and especially journaling about the things that you want in your life, right? So we do have, the full moon is in your fifth house, which is joy, fun, romance, right? So maybe writing about those things and how you can tweak things in order to get to that place. How can you honor that inner child and childlike approach to life more? Okay. Sagittarius rising. This full moon is in your fourth house of home and family. So you could be seeing the fruits of something, right? There was a new moon in Pisces in March, and this goes for everybody. So you could be seeing fruits there as well, where this full moon is. Now, that means that you will likely have some sort of uh, intuition, mystical energy coming through your home and family. Jupiter and Saturn are in your third house. That's more like decision making and communication. It's your local community. So there's a lot of work there, but a lot of dreams as well. Jupiter is expansive and it's like, hey, what is true for me here in this local community? How can I make it better? How can I build a new future here? How can I speak my truth? Mercury retrogrades in your 11th house of friend groups, networking, and future goals. So if you've had some plans, they may need to change at the Mercury retrograde. It's likely that whatever realization you have during this full moon is responsible for that needing to tweak, okay? So that's where Mercury is for you, goals and friend groups. And that's where you could be doing some rethinking, some reconciling. Okay, Capricorn rising. Yes, this full moon is in your third house of communication, thinking, um, how you address people, right? Like, how do you address people? um, it is also siblings. I feel the need to say that signification for Capricorn risings. That's the third house. So that's where this full moon is. You could be having to talk a lot, to make a lot of decisions. Also, maybe thinking differently about. Uh, I think that you're probably getting some definite messages coming through with it being in the third house for Capricorn risings. Now, Jupiter and Saturn in your second house. So there's a lot of values, self-worth, finances theme coming in for you as well. What are my goals for my finances? You're doing a lot of work there as well. How am I going to, I would say, build my value, my self-worth, my finances, especially with Saturn there? It can seem like a lot of work, but Saturn always asks us for more mastery. So Jupiter is like, what are my ideals here? What do I believe about my value, about my money, about my finances? Okay. Mercury retrograde will be in your, uh, wait a minute, I'm checking. Right. Yeah, it'll be in your 10th house. And that is career direction. So you could, man, yeah, you could definitely be rethinking something about career and what you're doing with your job coming up, and you may become aware of it at this full moon. So something about your value creates a need to reconcile something in your career. So I could see Capricorn Risings making a lot of career adjustments, and that's also the area of public reputation and legacy. So what meaning, does your job bring meaning to your life? That sort of thing. If you need to make changes at your job, this Mercury retrograde that's going to bring that as well. So reconciling something with career based on maybe some new awareness of your own self-worth. Okay. Aquarius rising. Yes, yes, yes. This full moon is in your second house. So you could be seeing some fruits in the area of finances and abundance and self-worth. Um, that's what seems mystical to you. So I think that this is a great energy for Aquarius risings for perhaps money and abundance. Now let's also look at where Jupiter is, though. It's in your first house of identity and self. And so there's something new coming through. You've got new ideas about how you want to present yourself to the world. And so Mercury is in your ninth house, which is what you believe about reality, what you believe about life, what you find true for yourself. So you may be going through a learning process here. It looks like maybe you have some sort of aha moment about who you are, about what's true for you. And then you need to learn how to even deal with it. You need to do some soul searching, I'm going to say, with the Mercury retrograde in the ninth house, especially based on an awareness of like, oh, you know what? That's the old me. This is the new me. How do I go about communicating that to people? So you may have to do some research coming up, like if you decide, okay, you know what, I want to be a guru, then you're going to have to learn how to be a guru, right? Of course, that's just, again, one of my fantastical sort of examples. But Mercury retrograde, the ninth house, really has you searching for what is true, which requires research and learning, I think. So I would also be in communication with friends. They're going to teach you something for sure, with it being Libra, and relationships as well. But you may have a new awareness about who you are, maybe about how people see you as well. It could be people communicating with you about how you appear to them. So if you're feeling the need to connect, that's going to be why Aquarius rising. You're going to want to probably connect for this. All right, Pisces rising. This full moon is in your first house of identity and self. So you are literally being illuminated here. That's where you may have some downloads about, like, some of those messages may come in about how you are seen to the world. Now, Jupiter and Saturn are in your 12th house. That's spirituality, dreams, visions. So this is very spiritual for you. And what I'm hoping is for you that you are going to be seen for this full moon. A lot of times Pisces risings may not feel seen, but I really want you to feel seen this full moon. Mercury retrograde is in your 8th house of shared resources, how you share yourself. So, it would not surprise me if you felt a little bit like isolating yourself, going inside, really figuring out how you want to re-emerge. This is really a butterfly sort of full moon for the Pisces risings out there, because Mercury retrograde is like, okay, if I want people to value me more, which is what you do want, and if you want to be seen as the very special, beautiful human you are, then you may need to pull back and stop giving so much. And the other thing is, it may be about building your own resources, building your own finances. The Mercury retrograde is going to teach you a lot about how you share yourself with people and about power dynamics as well. So I'd pay attention to the 8th house, which also rules inheritance and contracts as well. Business partnerships is another word I would use. So if you have a business partnership, because Mercury retrograde is in your 8th house, you may have to rethink the terms of that, right? So this is like renegotiation for Pisces rising. Okay, that does it for the rising sign stuff. Let me go through the week very quickly, because, things change pretty quick from this full moon. We go from full moon mystical energy to immediate action, because the moon this evening, after the full moon, it moves into Aries like super quick. Let's see what time. Yeah. So the full moon happens, then like 3 or 4 hours later, the moon's in Aries. So that means that, we immediately feel like moving, shaking, and taking action. Okay. We wake up in the morning with the moon in Aries. It opposes Mars overnight, which I'm kind of glad about that. Actually, it's opposed Mars early in the morning. Because moon opposite Mars can be like emotional inflammation, kind of like emotional reaction. So by like, if you're an early riser, that may have something to do with it, but it's only active very, very wee hours of the morning, then it's past that. So the other thing is the moon conjoins Chiron later in the evening on Tuesday. So this is Tuesday, the 21st that I'm talking about now, with the moon in Aries applying to a conjunction with Chiron, which is fairly sensitive. Chiron is the wounded healer, so it really can accentuate wounds and make us aware of them, and then we have to heal them. Now, a moon conjunction is a very brief moment, so I'm just saying around dinner time, watch for that, especially because we've got Mars and Mercury in the opposite sign of Libra. Okay, so Tuesday, though, I'm going to call that fairly, the moon's still pretty full, let's put it that way, but it's not really making a whole lot of connections. But Wednesday's a different animal. So Wednesday, the moon is in Aries when we wake up. And moon in Aries is always definitely taking action. That's what we're going to take action, okay? Mars, which rules Aries, is in Libra, though. And Mars in Libra, what's really great, I think I might have missed this, is that Mars is trine the North Node during this full moon that we've just had. So that's separating. So that's some major, this is the direction I want to go energy. But with the moon in Aries, opposite all of that, it can feel a little wobbly. So toward the evening, the moon opposes Mercury. So that is like, what wins the battle, my emotions or my intellect, right? I feel like I want to go after this thing. I've just had this great realization about where I want to go, what I want to do. I heard the voice and it said, that's what I want to do. The moon in Aries wants to do it. Well, Mars in Libra is like, we need to think about that. Mars in Aries energy does not necessarily know how to act or what action to take. It has to check with people. It has to think about things and weigh the possibilities. And so that can be how this feels. So moon opposite Mercury later in the evening, square Pluto. This is known as a T square. Both Mercury and the moon are square Pluto that day. This is like, we're not going to take it anymore energy. And I think that's how this will feel. So Wednesday, the 22nd ramps up. Okay. We are really ramping up, especially toward the evening. The other thing about Wednesday is we're getting closer to the Venus opposing Uranus, which is exact Thursday into Friday, but it's pretty close on the 22nd. So Venus opposite Uranus really has us going, wait a minute, I need freedom. And this is how I want to take action on that. Venus is in a Mars sign in Scorpio, and it realizes that there's been some shifts, right? Uranus in Taurus is shaking up what we value. Venus in Scorpio is like, well, if that's the case, then I don't even really care about this contract anymore. I don't even really put a whole lot of weight onto this. It really is a realization sort of thing. Sudden events happen with Venus opposite Uranus. I would expect that to kick off Wednesday night. Yeah. So some ideas about what we value and how others might have power. If there's any imbalances of power in our life, the Venus opposite Uranus is going to have us breaking free of that. So if you are in a bad situation, this is a good day to break free from it. Okay. Like it really is. So if you want to change your life, 22nd, 23rd, 24th offers you that opportunity for sure. I'm really actually excited about the Venus opposite Uranus. This could bring things from out of the blue though. So get your surfboard ready because there's going to be waves in places that there normally aren't waves. Fixed water. That's what Scorpio is. That's where Venus is. Uranus is like lightning hitting a swamp. Okay. So expect some realizations about relationships, about friendships, about money. And we are definitely trying to break free of things where situations where we're disempowered. Okay. So the thing about that was the 22nd into the 23rd. Now the 23rd is Thursday. That's when the Venus Uranus opposition is exact. But the thing about that is also the moon joins the party. The moon moves into Taurus. So we also have our emotions really being filtered through this Taurus area. What do I find comfortable? Oh, well, that's changing. I don't even like blankets anymore. In fact, I'm hot natured now, you know, so I don't want that nice soft blanket. It bothers my skin, whatever. I mean, again, crazy examples, but that's what moon and Taurus is like. It's realizing where its values have shifted. And it's just coming on the heels of that Venus Uranus opposition. So this is a really, really great time to make changes. Okay. So moon's in Taurus all day Thursday the 23rd with Venus opposite Uranus. Mercury still square Pluto and starting to really slow down. In fact, Thursday night, I'm sorry, it moves to the 25th degree overnight, which is the stationary degree. Okay, so Friday we wake up with the moon hitting Uranus. So where Venus opposed Uranus on Thursday, the moon dipped its toes into Taurus, but now it's well into the middle of Taurus. And Friday we have that emotional epiphany if we didn't already have it. Some people feel it way ahead of time. Some people, wait till the exact moment. But I would look to Friday for a time when our emotions shift on the subject. Well, maybe we're able to accept this place that we're changing or where our life is changing. Also, let's see. Friday evening, what we're getting is Mars getting closer to trine Saturn. And I skipped right over the equinox. I mean, it's Wednesday at 2:45 p.m., by the way. That means the sun's moving into Libra. It's also getting closer to Mars. I didn't mean to skip over it. It's just something that happens every year. So the sun moves into Libra on Wednesday. Thursday, Venus opposes Uranus, moon in Taurus. Friday, moon in Taurus hitting Uranus. So shaky few days, I think middle week. And then Friday night, Yeah, we get closer to Mars trine Saturn. And that is the case when we wake up. Now, Mars trine Saturn is really great. Oh my gosh, it's really great because it's the ability to work on our stuff, to see where we need to structure ourselves and to take advantage of it. We're going to pick up that hammer, right? Now, Mars is in Libra. So this is more like, okay, less of a hammer, more of a pick up the olive branch, maybe. But we do see where we're being called to mastery in Aquarius, and Mars in Libra is helping us take action, maybe helping us reconcile some things. That is the case through till Sunday. And then Sunday, we have something really nice, a grand trine in air. The moon moves into Gemini overnight. And then when we wake up Sunday, the moon is trine Saturn, trine Mars. So that's going to be a great day, I think. I think this trine to Saturn with the moon and Mars is all about being able to build on this new information. And by the way, this is the day before Mercury goes retrograde. It goes retrograde just after midnight Sunday. So say bye-bye to normal communication. Isn't it interesting? We have a grand trine in air, which is like encourages communication and building on these relationships, and the Mercury goes retrograde that night. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me. That's the week. I'll see you Monday, Mercury retrograde day. Holler at me if you want me to look at your chart. We'll see you soon.